Let's bring in the guest now, Steve. Stay right there. Who does say that immigration is essential to the labor market because they don't just fill open jobs, they create them. Here to explain is Sohn, the CEO of Aura Intelligence and a senior advisor at Recruiter.com. Evan, did you follow all that?
You know, I caught the 800,000 number the same way you did. I'm like, that's the same number we just said was overstated. So Steve, I'd love to see your math. By the way, I think the other number.
It's not my math. It's not my math. It's the government's math, as well as Goldman Sachs affirming it.
I hear you. Again, Kelly, thanks for having me back. The other number that I think is going to get affected, Steve, is the employment number, the total percentage of people that are employed, right? That number, so the overall population that are employed, that's actually going to go up.
Right. That's another interesting thing that's going to happen. I didn't get into that detail. What's going to happen is you'll have a larger number of younger Hispanic people that have a somewhat higher unemployment rate, a somewhat lower employment to population ratio, but a somewhat higher participation rate. And I didn't want to confuse everybody with that. But it shouldn't mean... It should not mean a massive change to all of these. All I can go with is the Goldman numbers. They see just a 4 basis point. What that means is if unemployment was 4.1, it would be 4.14. The participation rate, Goldman estimates to be 11 basis points. And there are times, Kelly, I wish sometimes I thought better of doing certain stories. Maybe this is one of them.
No, Steve, can you imagine what it's going to be like when this hits tomorrow morning? And it's like, no, this narrative, no, this narrative. There will definitely be a newsletter or maybe 2 on this. Evan, I did think your point on immigration was interesting. What have you found?
So there's really 3 areas of immigration, right? There's the highly skilled H-1B visa professional roles, filling the highly skilled labor market open roles. If we tighten up immigration rules, there's going to be additional wage pressure on those roles. And we already saw the JOLT number from last month that the quit rate was like below pre-pandemic levels. So if those highly skilled folks don't want to quit their job and you can't get them from overseas or you can't get them through immigration, the wages are going to have to increase there. The second group of immigrants are really in the lower salaried level roles. And clearly, there's going to be an impact. We saw in the Aura jobs report an increase in hospitality jobs, in our restaurant report, an increase in restaurant overall jobs. And again, if you can't find the labor to fit those jobs, either wages, again, have to increase or businesses are going to have to adjust and maybe look through automation or do something else. The third area, which I think is really something that we need to talk more about, is that so many small businesses, and small businesses are such a catalyst for job creation in this country. And there's so many immigrants that are doing small businesses. You know, I started to use some ChatGPT to find out, give me all the top companies that were started by immigrants, and it's still processing. It is a pretty sizable market.
Well, it's a common talking point in the show, Evan, how much we're using ChatGPT for everything. So I appreciate you running that one. Steve, also, looking ahead to kind of the jobs report months down the road, the bigger kind of concern has been that we could see the headline numbers slowing. I don't know if we're also going to have to contend with that in the morning as a cross current because of immigration and other factors.
Yeah, obviously, by the way, you have some fires and maybe even some additional hurricane effects in tomorrow's number. We'll see if that ends up being an issue. That's one thing. And you're right. I'm trying to think through, Kelly. Maybe Evan has some thoughts how what's going on in the federal government will have an effect here. If these folks are laid off, they might eventually end up in the jobless claims numbers. Perhaps there's some additional hiring. You could have doubling up where the federal government ends up hiring to replace them. And then, of course, if you are doing the deportation issues, then those jobs will come off over time. But then you have to really question the ability of the government to count these bodies coming in and out is very, very difficult. You can see here, Census went through a very long process to try to get this right. And perhaps they did now, and then it's going to shift the other way. So it just takes time. Sometimes you got to look out your window, Kelly, and find out what's happening in the economy. There have been a number of data points that suggest that the economy has been strong. If, for example, you had weak GDP growth, but strong job growth. Well, maybe the jobs numbers are wrong, but you've had above average GDP growth, you had above average job growth. Those sort of go together.